I was born and raised in Sioux Falls, and I've been going to concerts in my hometown since I was at least 15. One of my favorite places to see bands is right here at Total Drag, which opened in 2014. It was a show with Diet Sig in November of 2018 that made me realize a problem I hadn't noticed before. I feel like I haven't seen many women like myself on stage.
Thank you so much to all the women and trans folks and queer folks and non-binary folks who come to our shows and listen to our music. Like, you are the magic in these spaces, and I never want you to feel like you can't take up space, because literally rock and roll was created by a queer woman of color. Her name was Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and like, she did her thing so we could do ours.
That was something she'd said on stage, and I asked her to say it again because those are words I didn't want to miss. Who was Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and why had I never heard of her? Thankfully, I was in a gender and media class, and we could write a final paper on anything, so I got to work. I presented my research at a conference.
Didn't it rain, children?
In a world where increasing numbers of all-male four-piece rock bands have dominated music history, popular culture, and much of media coverage, for many people it seems difficult to imagine that anyone other than men play rock music.
My research got me wondering, what obstacles did the women and queer and trans people face in my music scene? What would they have to say about the setbacks they've faced in Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Fargo, and maybe even Vermilion? And how hard would it be to book my own music festival in Vermilion with a focus on diversity?
You don't know me at all, so what was I thinking? It's no excuse that you said you've been drinking.
This story starts in Sioux Falls, where I first started going to shows, Total Drag. The venue and record store combo is owned by Dan and Liz Nissen. They both grew up in the music scene and met when they were teenagers. Prior to opening Total Drag, they stayed there were mostly bar shows or house venues in Sioux Falls.
Before we opened this place, the all-ages scene especially just seemed to be kind of non-existent. There wasn't really any places for kids to go see shows, so that was partially what spurred the opening of Total Drag.
We had just been going to Minneapolis or Omaha to see a lot of the bands we wanted to see, and I guess we just sort of realized that if we built a venue we thought bands would like to play, then they would hopefully start stopping in Sioux Falls. And that has happened, and I think that definitely fuels us to keep being able to book bands we really like and really believe in and bring that to the community here.
The couple say it's important to keep the venue all ages so young people can safely enjoy music in a place free of drugs and alcohol.
I think every scene needs kids, needs the next, there always needs to be the next wave of creativity and kids that need to get that creativity out and join a band and meet new people and enjoy music together. Kids need to be allowed to see the shows. That's why it's a bummer when you have to be 21 to go see live music.
I think that's why, in our mind, the Sioux Falls scene kind of died or got frozen almost for a little bit, because there wasn't that all-ages outlet, not only for people under 21 to get involved, but I think something about that raw, youthful energy is super inspiring, even to us old people.
Total Drag isn't the only all-ages space in Sioux Falls or the Midwest. Back when I started this project, a Sioux City house venue called The Ox was undergoing a change. A house venue is a do-it-yourself or DIY space where locals book bands to play their living room, basement, or garage. The audience is usually a group of like-minded friends and acquaintances. The Ox was started by Kendall Model, who grew up in Sioux City. She saw a need for an all-ages venue in her community.
It was really growing, and it was really good when I first started going to shows here. And then our main promoter in town stopped booking, and at least where I was at in music, it kind of dwindled away. And then my friends started being in bands, so I started going to local shows again, and most of them were at the bars. I just wasn't really digging any of the music that was in town. It was just not my thing, and I was just into so much different stuff, so I was like, I'm gonna start doing this. Because there was no emo, there was no alternative really going on in town. A lot of just metalcore, folk, things like that. Just not up my alley. But So yeah, it was mostly bar goers for shows before I started the Ox, that's for sure.
The Ox is named for Oxford Men's House, which was the original purpose of the building before it was rented as a home. Kendall says the Ox was meant for all ages.
Because my whole teenage life was going to shows, and I'm like, that's not fair to these kids that can't get into bars. So that was my main motive, is I just wanted kids to be able to go to shows. But yeah, I'm really excited and really proud of what we created here. I felt like we saw so many high school kids that I'd never seen before at shows. So many bands were started out of the Ox. It was really cool to see, and we had kids from 3 years old all the way to adults, grandparents. It was great. We had definitely all ages.
The Ox held its last show in February as Kendall and her partner Jake moved into a new home together and chose a more permanent venue for shows.
So I don't know, this is like the coolest thing that I've ever done, and I cannot believe like the impact it's made on our community. I did not ever think I would have 65 people once in my house. I didn't think 30, plus of you would come tonight when it's freezing and it's on a holiday. That's so cool. You could be anywhere else but you're here. And that's so sweet. And we're going to keep things going. We're going to have bigger bands. We're going to have, everything. And it's sweet that so many of you just keep coming out. And coming out for the first time, there's so many new faces, and that's so sick. Support the scene. Support the Ox. Support the new space. It's just going to get bigger and better from here, so thank you all for everything, because this would not be anything without any of you guys. This is all about you guys, so thank you.
And thank you, Kendall.
After the last Ox show, Kendall booked 10 bands from all across the Midwest for the first ever Ox Fest on March 2nd. She started booking shows in different venues around Sioux City to attract more of the public to the music scene.
We're triple the size over there. We've got a coffee stand set up for hopefully most of the shows, and ping pong and all this fun stuff to do. So definite upgrade from here. So I'm very excited about that. Hopefully I'll be able to bring some more larger bands and things of that sort into town. And then with booking, so I just kind of want to dabble in booking tours. I helped Sun Title out with a couple of dates on their first full US tour. And then I'm currently booking a couple tours for a couple bands, and that is a whole new ball game. Like, I never truly thought it would be as hard as it is.
Kendall says she's surprised more places haven't started caring for bands the same way she does when she books shows.
Being a promoter, you think, oh yeah, there's definitely tons more people out there like you who are out here to help bands and to do, like my main motive with the Ox is to be a safe place for touring bands. They come here, I feed them, I pay them with guarantee, and I always pay them over. I give them a place to sleep and a comfortable place to be. And I thought there was a lot more spaces like that out there, and I'm finding out that it is very far away from what I thought it was everywhere else in the United States. So I'm kind of hoping, starting out here and creating this type of space, more people will use that and be a promoter like that. And I know not everybody is financially stable enough to be able to do things like that, but yeah, I think it's growing.
In Sioux City, other women have been inspired to start their own music festivals. Simone Whitlock booked her first show on her own on April 6th and wanted to feature mostly women and LGBTQ artists.
I just kept waiting for something like this to happen here because we have more than enough capability for it, so I just kind of kept waiting for someone to do something. And I was feeling like almost frustrated with that because like every show I go to, it's always kind of the same thing, and so I decided whatever, I guess I'm just gonna do it.
Simone was born and raised in Sioux City and grew up going to shows. She named the event Sioux City Pretty in order to take back its meaning.
I came out like before high school, and this guy was like hitting on one of my friends and kind of being rude to me, and he was saying that she was just gorgeous, and he was like, well, you're just like Sioux City Pretty. And he was really like rude about it, like just trying to hurt my feelings. But I was trying to think of a name for the event, and then I thought of that, and I was like, well, yeah, like let's have it be that. And then I wanted to take it back and make it something that means something really good, and
exciting and fun.
Simone booked bands like Free Truman and artists like Her Grace to play the inaugural festival. Her Grace is Grace Clays, who grew up in Sioux City. Grace learned piano and guitar from a very young age and grew up playing music in church. She's been in several bands and just recently started her solo career.
Well, I've always actually been in a band till now. Because I was in a band with my brother and one other person, Oniris, and that was probably around the 17, 18-year-old when I started going into the music scene. And then I did Port Nocturnal and did that for quite a while, for about 2 to 3 years, I would say. So this year, back in 2018 is when I started, learning how to be on my own, because I've never done that before. So it was also a very, very insecure moment where I'm like, I still want to do this, but now I'm not going to have a team, I'm not going to have a band, I have to do it by myself if that's something I want to do. So doing Her Grace has been a completely new experience, totally learning experience, as in music, as in like self-identity, all that stuff.
Grace says she's proud of Simone for hosting the festival and proud of people in Sioux City for supporting the music.
So I'm astounded by, just people supporting in Sioux City, people supporting from out of town, just wanting to and have the same vision as she does, to be like, yes, this should be a normal thing, women diversity, blah, 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 all that. So I'm really proud of Sioux City in itself, too. So where they're just accepting and very loving, and the music community is great and insanely talented.
Another band that played at Sioux City Pretty is Free Truman. The band is Taylor and Tia Krabenhoft.
Hello, we're Free Truman. We're from Fargo. We're very excited to be here. Thank you for listening.
We've kind of always been interested in music and punk rock, I guess. I started playing guitar when I was around 13. Tia didn't start playing music until Free Truman's actual first show. I was asked to play a solo show, and I was kind of too shy to play guitar and sing by myself, so I asked Tia if I could teach her how to play drums. So I taught her how to play like one beat. We played 3 songs under the name Taylor and Tia. We never thought we would ever play a show again, but then someone asked us to play another, so we thought we'd better make a band name. So we thought of Free Truman, and here we are today.
Tia says after their first show, they were both inspired to play music.
And then it turned into like this thing that we were both like very like passionate about and like had a lot of fun doing and like met a lot of cool people through. I always like liked music, but I was like always kind of like, I don't want to go. And like I did get into it like very young. Like I was probably like 14 when I went to my first show, like 13 maybe. So like it was young.
The sisters have toured relentlessly over the last few years. In March, they decided to do something different, booking their own music festival. It all started with a meme Taylor had posted critiquing another local music festival.
I just made a meme criticizing like the lack of announced diversity on T&D Fest. A lot of people got really upset with me. They thought like me wanting more diversity was me saying, oh, you're assholes, like I don't respect anything you've done and all your hard work should be discredited. When in truly it was more just, I don't know, I wasn't even trying to do anything at first. I was just making a meme. But then I guess it resonated with like a lot of people, and like a lot of people agreed and were saying the same thing, that they would like to see more diversity on it.
Taylor says she received several comments from people in the Fargo-Moorhead music scene, including people affiliated with the New Direction Fest, who were critical of her comments.
One of the old volunteers and like an affiliate with T&D, in response to my meme, said, "Sorry, I'm white, book your own fest." And then it kind of became a thing where people would just say, book your own fest, do something for your community, like quit trying to be a social justice warrior like on the internet, when I wasn't even trying to do that. I was just like joking around at first. But then I took it seriously and I did book my own fest.
These comments ultimately became the name for the festival that Taylor, Tia, and their friend Sydney put on at the Red Raven Espresso Parlor in Fargo. They called it Book Your Own Fest and held it on the same weekend as the New Direction Fest, or T&D Fest. T&D organizer Jack Stenerson has been involved in the music scene since he was a teenager. He chalks Taylor's comment up to the order that the bands for T&D Fest were announced.
Right over on that. We name bands one at a time. So for 21 days or something, we would name a band that was playing New Direction Fest for the whole time. So we were doing that, and we were, halfway into it, and then somebody posted like a meme on the internet saying like waiting for New Direction to announce a band that was not all, straight white males, which is, it's an issue for sure. So I guess when I was doing the actual lineup, I guess we have bands with, there's a couple bands today playing with like female singers. We had one yesterday, and it's a representation, but just the order we were releasing things in, I wasn't really paying attention to that, and they were all kind of on the back end and then not really announced yet. So that was on me for not really, sprinkling that into the announcement pool in order.
Stenerson was involved with the New Direction when it was still a venue, and before it changed to a yearly festival. He says the comments on Taylor's post gave the wrong impression of T&D.
Basically, somebody had said, basically when she posted that, somebody said, well, book your own fest then. And that just kind of implied, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it kind of implied that, no, we don't care about diversity. And that's not true at all. It was just kind of an overlook on the order that we were announcing bands.
Taylor says she wishes more people had taken her concerns with the lack of diversity at the New Direction Fest seriously.
Other affiliates reached out to me and told me that they tried, but sometimes things just don't work out, which was kind of like a cop-out to me because I feel like with the money and time and resources that they have, like, anything's possible. And not to, like, this isn't hating on anyone or anything, but I'm just saying, like, if someone's saying, like, hey, maybe let's do better, instead of, like, making excuses for it or ignoring them or degrading them, maybe just listen or take a second to look at yourself and see what could be done.
Taylor says she received a lot of backlash from posting the meme at first.
It kind of sucked for a while because I felt like a lot of people disliked me for just joking around on the internet at first, and then secondly, just wanting to see more diversity, which to me isn't a negative thing. If anything, it's positive.
Stenerson says he hopes the two festivals can collaborate in the future.
I feel like Book Your Own Fest and New Direction Fest should be a thing that just kind of works together. Because I want to support it. There's 65 bands playing in Fargo over the whole weekend, and that's the coolest thing. But just, it kind of started on a negative note, and I feel like I'm partially responsible because I didn't speak out right away. And because I don't want any bad blood. There is no bad blood. I've met with the organizers of that. We're cool. I think it's just kind of like the community was weird about it for a while. But yeah, overall, I should have been like, this is what's going on. We haven't released this yet. But instead, I was just kind of following my old philosophy of stay out of it. And if they do it again, I would love to see it happen on subsequent weekends so we can support each other. Because there's bands I wanted to see yesterday and today that of course I won't be able to see because I have to be here and have responsibilities here.
Taylor says she and her fellow promoters chose each artist for Book Your Own Fest very deliberately.
Basically everyone that played is just people that I've met from touring around the Midwest. They were all regional acts, and they're all queer, femme, trans, non-binary, people of color. It was a good mix.
We're Gully Boys, we're from Minneapolis, and this song is called Big Bad Lover. You marvel in my mindful blush, you are not good to achieve them of us. I swear, I'm not. No quiero llamarte, ni quiero besarte, no quiero nada contigo. No quiero hablarte, ni quiero dejarte. Que no me animo, quiero explicarte, ni quiero hablarte. Ni quiero nada contigo, ni quiero extrañarte. Que no me animo, what you want to say.
I knew they were out there, and the excuse I received earlier, like where we tried, I was like, obviously you didn't try hard enough, because all these people, they work hard all the time and they would love to come play a fest, like any fest at all. I wanted to get like a good mix of like genres and also like people. And all ages was a decision that was made just because I think all shows should be all ages, because there doesn't need to be an age restriction on music.
One diverse band is Plumslugger, the work of Sydney Berlinger. They grew up in Fargo and helped organize Book Your Own Fest.
Walking home, and I'm thinking about all the things
I started playing shows when I was 15. The first band I was in, I was 14 when we like started the band. Yeah, I played my first show at the Raven. It used to be somewhere else, but I feel like the Raven has always kind of been the spot in Fargo where a lot of people played their first show. From playing in bands, I just kept doing it and have consistently been playing in bands ever since. So like basically like 10 years of playing in bands.
Sydney has played in Plumslugger, Velveteen, Pavlov's Daughter, and Uncle Dad. They've been booking shows since they were a teenager and say they were happy to help with Book Your Own Fest.
When the thing with T&D Fest happened, and I was just like, hell yeah, I'm on board. Like, I'm definitely like willing to do whatever I can to help. I used to book my own band shows just because I guess being a new band, and like my first band, it was like all girls, and so like not a lot of people would want to book us, and so it would be me like coming into the Raven being like, I want to set up a show, like this is the date I want, and they'd be like, okay, and then I would just book it, and it would just be like me at age 15, like booking shows that like all my high school friends would go to, and that would be about it. But
Sydney says that the new direction has been historically unwelcoming to them.
Even when T&D was still a physical space, I never really felt like it was a space made for me or people like me. Whenever I would play shows there, I'd really feel like excluded, and like nobody would like really want to like chat or like acknowledge us or anything like that. And so like I'm not really that surprised that that's the whole response to Book Your Own Fest from them and everything like that. I'm not really surprised at it, and hopefully they're finally aware of like the reality of the situation, and like we'll try to be better in the future. And that's all I can really like hope for them, because like I don't think it's malicious, but I think it's just laziness of like booking your own friends' bands who like happen to be dudes.
1 month after Book Your Own Fest, Free Truman made their way down to Sioux Falls to play a benefit show. The show was for Dylan Daniels, as he was in the process of paying for his top surgery. Daniels is a Vermilion and Sioux Falls-based musician who plays under the moniker Baby D. He's played in a handful of bands between Sioux Falls and his hometown of Vermilion, and says Vermilion once had a thriving music scene during his teen years.
It's always kind of like come and gone in waves, just because it's so small. But there was a while there when I was, 14, where there was like a lot of shows, like in the summer there'd be shows once a week at least, and it was very DIY, mostly touring bands, and that was pretty much my whole life, and it was awesome.
Dylan says the music community in Lawrence, Kansas was one of the first places he felt comfortable using they/them pronouns.
I feel like music actually played like a really central role in transitioning for me. Like I first I guess I already felt kind of like sort of non-binary, but at the point where I asked people to use like neutral pronouns for me was after I went to Lawrence, Kansas for the Girls Rock camp, because they were like, what are your pronouns? And they wanted to be like respectful of pronouns, and it was like the first place I felt like I could like ask for my pronouns to be respected and like not feel like a burden. I felt a lot more confident in like asking for what I needed from people, and then the more I've transitioned physically and socially, the more I realize that I'm like a fairly like binary guy. And that was also like hard with music too, because I had kind of built up this platform as like being kind of like riot girl or whatever, which, and like over issues that I felt super passionate about, and I was like, this is like what I stand for, this is whatever. So I was having like a musical identity crisis. And then on top of that, like I put off starting testosterone for a long time, even though I really like knew that was the road I was ultimately going to go down because of the vocal changes that accompany it, and just being super terrified of that, because it's like I feel like my voice is everything, like as a musician. Just to feel like I'm gambling over it, I guess, was super scary.
When Dylan went on tour with Baby D in the summer of 2018, he says he received a different reaction to his music because he had started transitioning socially.
And that was strange, not gonna lie. It was also interesting how like differently it was perceived by people, and I think I was like just really like clearly able to be like, I don't know, just like a girl singing those songs versus like a dude singing those songs is like perceived very differently. So that was not discrimination, but that was just something I noted.
Dylan says his hometown community of Vermilion has been extremely welcoming.
I've been like very overwhelmed with how many supportive people I have in my world, and I feel super, super fortunate, yeah. And Vermilion's been amazing. Vermilion's been like beautiful, and yeah, like I guess I am grateful to live here too.
Another welcoming community for Dylan is Sioux Falls. He says he held his fundraiser in Sioux Falls because he wanted to bring together diverse voices like Free Truman and have the show open to all ages. This wasn't Free Truman's first time in Sioux Falls either. They've played at several all-ages house venues in Sioux Falls, like Cricket's Place, run by B. Lore. B says house venues are important because they are more inclusive.
So everyone can come to the show, and 21 and up shows are lame, and teenagers want to come out too. I think having an age restriction is stupid.
B started going to shows in high school and started their house venue when they were 18. B's first show at Cricket's Place was with Free Truman on Halloween in 2018. B says that while Sioux Falls is an inclusive music scene, there is not enough representation of diversity in the scene.
Here in Sioux Falls, it's mostly like just white dudes. We definitely need more diversity here. You know, up in Minneapolis, there's some diversity there, and like other Midwest scenes, you definitely see the diversity, and sometimes they come through here, but we're lacking diversity here in Sioux Falls for sure. And that is why gender is important, and you know, trans people, queer people, they're important even just to come out to the shows, as it's like a safe space.
B also notes the importance of seeing oneself reflected on stage. As a trans person, they say they felt included and seen at their house venue.
Seeing queer people up on stage is encouraging to queer people in the audience. It's really important. Yeah, it was pretty good running that house as a trans person. Like the most I'd get is just a misgender.
When B moved houses, they wanted the house venue community to live on in Sioux Falls. That's when Shelby Shearhorn started their own house venue, Luigi's Mansion.
May 6th, 2019, Luigi's Mansion was born. All thanks to B. It really is. Like, they gave me the idea, they showed me how to do a house show, and I was able to do it, so I was like, yeah, let's just do it.
Shelby says they receive mixed reactions based on their gender.
If I book the show, and they're very surprised that it's always like a girl presenting person who like started all this.
They're not the only one who receives this reaction. When Kendall receives booking inquiries from bands, she often gets messages saying, "Hey dude," or "Hey man."
That actually happens so often. I mean, not even just with the Ox, like my day-to-day life, my name, Kendall, is a unisex name, so people a lot of times think I'm a man, which is whatever. But yeah, that got super annoying. It's like, don't always assume somebody's a man. Like, women are out here doing this too. Non-binary are out here doing this too.
Many of the musicians and promoters that I spoke to for this project mentioned different times where they faced discrimination in music. Several of them talked about situations ranging from microaggressions based on their gender to blatant discrimination. Sid has been in a handful of bands and says they're no stranger to the condescending comments they receive.
I've played so many shows where like people will come up to me afterward and be like, "Oh, you're actually good at guitar. Oh, like you're actually pretty good for girls. Oh, you're actually like," there's that. Or like when I'm like setting up, people will like, if I'm using someone else's amp and it's like a guy's amp, he'll always be like, "This is how you turn," it's like, yeah, I know how to turn an amp on. I don't know. There's just like a lot of like small things like that where it's like, it really just like adds up. And I think that if I wasn't playing in a band with my best friends when I started music, it would have like really got me down and stuff, because you just don't feel like you're taken seriously.
Tia also says she's faced microaggressions where people try to explain drums to her.
I don't know, and even like our first out of town show ever, we were playing in Minneapolis, and there was this man, and he just like came up to me and he's like, "Yeah, you guys were fine, but like here's what you could do to do this differently and make this sound better," blah 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 blah, and just pretty much like mansplaining playing drums to me, which is like fine because like it's like, yeah, I was like playing drums for 6 months at that point, but just like I think you can tell like when people are like genuinely wanting to like help you or like trying to just be like, I'm better than you and I'm a boy and this is what you can do differently. There's just like little comments, or we'll get like, "Oh yeah, like you guys are good for like girls," or like, "Oh wow, you project like surprisingly well for girls anyways." And it's like, I don't understand why you have to add that comment, or like I feel like they're like meaning it as like a compliment, but like to me that's not a compliment. So many little comments that it's like if we were a band of like straight white males, we wouldn't be getting. But it's just like frustrating. I don't know.
Her sister Taylor says she's seen many of the same problems. She remembers when she went on tour with a friend's band and dealt with insinuating comments in a different city.
Well, even just before I played in a band, I remember I went on tour with like this one band of like 5 dudes, and we were playing in Kansas City, and like the opening guy like said something like, "Oh, I like wrote this song to impress like the chicks," and I was the only girl there. Comments like that happen all the time. Or when you're loading in gear, people like assume you're not playing in the band, that you're just there for some reason, loading in gear. I'm not gonna say I'm like the most like oppressed person in the world or anything, but there's been instances that have been definitely annoying.
From Fargo to Sioux City, women like Taylor and Simone have had issues with venues. Simone says she faced ageism and sexism when booking Sioux City Pretty.
I had a venue issue where they had double booked me, and then I had to rush to find this venue because I needed somewhere big enough. Usually as a girl, on top of being very young, like there is an ageist game to things as well. I know I haven't been taken seriously for a majority of this. Like with the venue issue, I know that's because I'm a girl, this is my first thing, and I don't think people take you seriously when you're younger because I'm 23 and I'm trying to do this annually.
Like Taylor, Grace says she had an issue with her former band, Port Nocturnal, which ultimately pushed her to start her solo career in music.
And what kind of happened was there's just always kind of had like a quizzical brow to some of the people that would be in the band, just because you always have to protect yourself. So there was some inappropriate happenings that happened to one of my close friends, and that was kind of just what cut it off, because there was things leading up to it where I was like, okay, this is unsafe, I'm gonna let it go by. And then I kind of just let that happen, and then it was to a point where this not safe for myself, not safe for people around me, so I had to cut that off. And as much as it broke my heart, it was something that was kind of leading up to that point, and then do it by myself, so.
Grace and Kendall both say that they don't let people hold them back based on their gender.
A lot of people would underestimate me because of being a woman, which I initially kind of hated, but then I was like, I'm really excited that you're underestimating me because I'm going to prove you wrong.
I've never personally felt held back as a female because I don't want to feel held back. So I'm just like, I can do whatever I want. And that's like the mentality I've always had. Starting going to shows, I was very nervous because I was a female and I was very cautious. And I feel like now I just have like a way better head on my shoulders and I have a little bit more confidence. And actually like booking has helped that immensely too. Like you meet all these people, all these booking agents, all these bands that really respect you now. And you know, I just feel like it doesn't matter who you are, you should be able to do anything. And in my field with music, I've been able to do anything and my voice has been heard.
Many of the people I spoke to for this project felt it was important to have diverse representative music scenes. Sid says good representation is integral to a thriving arts scene like Fargo's.
If you want to have like a healthy like arts and music scene anywhere, like you need to have people of all types playing music and like I think the best way to like get people into playing is to have like people who look like them also in the scene, and that's the way that they feel like they matter and that they like actually can do it, as opposed to like if you're just like the only person doing it and everyone else is like a dude or whatever, like you're not gonna feel like you want to keep doing it. It's gonna feel too hard, and art shouldn't be hard. It should be fun.
Taylor even says that seeing one of Sydney's early bands helped her realize that she could play rock music too.
When I was young and starting to go to shows, there was seriously no girls playing except one band called Uncle Dad, and my friend Sydney, who helped with Book Your Own Fest, was in that band, and that was actually like, damn, this is like badass, maybe I could do this. I feel like if you see it happen more often, you realize that it's like normal and possible and capable.
Grace says she's often the only queer woman on stage at shows in Sioux City and hopes to see that change in the future.
And honestly, always normally being one of maybe two girls, but often always being the only girl on a stage. And that honestly always broke my heart. So I'm like, where are the women? Where are my people? You know what I mean? So when I would see a girl, I'd just be like, that's awesome, that's fabulous, because it's hard. It's hard to do that. It's hard to be alone and being in a man's world.
With the Ox, Kendall says she's seen firsthand the impact that booking more diverse bands can have on Sioux City's youth.
I've seen, just from beginning the Ox to ending it, so many more females coming to shows and so many more people being more confident to like talk to other people and talk to me or talk to people in bands. So I think it's, you know, the whole thing surrounding the Ox, the whole thing surrounding being inclusive is to show our youth that's what you guys should do next.
What DIY means to me is taking every aspect of your life into your own hands.
Obviously, do it yourself is the literal term, but that has been what we have done. And it's not always been easy, but it makes us feel like super powerful that we have kind of created our own future and our own destiny. And
Truly do it yourself. Anyone is capable of doing anything they want to do, as long as you're trying, your heart's in it.
Creating a space where people can like express themselves and feel like they're like comfortable to do it and supportive. And like, I mean, obviously like DIY, do it yourself, there's like, no one's really like making big bucks or anything like that, but I think it's just the whole community, like idea of like artists supporting artists and like hopefully like getting other people involved and stuff.
DIY, you know, before didn't really mean anything to me, but really getting involved in different scenes, especially the Midwest scene, it's just like, it's so family oriented and you don't really like understand that until you get involved with it. So like you just meet so many people from all over the place.
The DIY scene means a lot because, I don't know, I feel like everyone's just helping each other out and it's fun to, you know, kind of know people from different places.
A hit in my face is doing it all by yourself, and that's honestly been one of the things I've been most afraid of, is doing things by yourself, you know, doing music by yourself, doing singing by yourself, talking in front of people by yourself, and then, you know, trying to find shows, trying to find who you are as a musician. So I think that's been probably the biggest learning curves, is do-it-yourself type thing. So
I think it's like do it yourself, but I don't know if yourself is the best thing. I think it's more of like a do-it-together situation where like you all work together for like the greater good of like having a show. And I think that's what DIY is all about, kind of just like getting together with your friends wherever you can and just doing the thing that is having a show or playing music and having fun.
Like DIY to me is just about like being proactive and like if you see a need for something like in your community or whatever it is, it's like do something about it. There's this band called Slingshot Dakota that played at the VAC once, and they had an awesome song called DIT, Do It Together, which I almost like more because I'm like, you know, it's like, it's never really DIY. DIT, you know, it's like do it together like you do it with your community, and it's like, it's super empowering.
With alternative music in the Midwest, it almost feels easier to use the all-encompassing label of DIY, or do-it-yourself, to describe the sound and the scene. A lot of these bands and musicians have had to take their own charge with making their music and creating something out of nothing. In my experience with booking bands for events like One Blue String, which focused on empowering male survivors of sexual assault, and promoting Dime Fest at USD, which focused on diversity in music and entertainment, at times it did feel very do-it-yourself, but I always felt supported by USD and Vermilion and the teams I had on my side for both events. Yet there's still work to be done.
However, I think that events like this still are super, super, super important, if nothing else, so that the folks on the prairie know that there are like-minded people who are around them and who are with them, right? Because it can be a little bit of a daunting place to be. And we still have a lot of work to do in regards to having diverse people playing bills in general. And so
the lights are still on.
Yeah.
So we're winning.
We're paying our bills, yeah.
I'm just hoping, you know, taking this, you know, this experience with this house can show all of these younger kids in Sioux City, one, to start doing what I was doing, and two, to start bands and kind of take this as an experience and move forward with it.
So really closed off. One of the reasons that I am doing this and having it, because I'm making this a nonprofit, but it's a nonprofit dedicated to anything we collect, putting it right back into the community.
I want to take a break. We've never really kind of taken a break since we started doing the band. And like last year we played like 100-some shows, and then on top of like working full time and like having a dog and stuff, it's kind of just busy.
You can just look at me. Okay.
Like, it's super important to, I don't know, see people that look like you playing music, and that makes you want to play music too.
But I am taking a break from doing the and the band part for now until further notice. So right now.
If I did?